You clicked because you are tired of watching your drive climb high, hang in the air, and drop 40 yards short of where it should land. You feel it every round. That ball ballooning up into the sky like it hit a wall. And you have been told to swing harder, buy a new driver, take another lesson, but none of that is your problem. Here is what I found after 3 months of digging through patents, robot testing data, and old equipment manuals nobody reads anymore. The distance you are losing is not in your swing. It is spinning right off the face of the wrong golf ball. Too much backspin is stealing 20, 30, sometimes 40 yards from ordinary golfers, and almost nobody tells you which balls actually fix it. This used to be common knowledge among club makers, then it got buried under marketing. I am going to show you the 5 low spin balls that actually work in 2026, why they work, and a strange saltwater test from a 1960s equipment lab that tells you in 60 seconds whether the ball in your bag is secretly sabotaging every shot you hit. This works for you whether you swing 90 miles an hour or 70. I started this whole thing standing on the 12th tee at a muni course outside my town, watching my playing partner outdrive me with a swing half as pretty as mine. That moment bothered me for weeks, because I knew my swing was fine. I had the lessons. I had the launch monitor numbers. And yet this guy, this retired plumber with a homemade grip and a slow, lazy tempo, was flying it past me every single time. So I did what I always do when something does not add up. I started pulling the thread, and the first place the thread led me was somewhere I never expected. Not to a swing coach, not to a fitness trainer, but to a small box of numbers printed on the side of a golf ball sleeve that most people never even read. Let me tell you what I saw when I finally read them. The first clue came from a number that golf ball companies stopped printing decades ago. Spin rate. Back when I started looking, I assumed all golf balls were basically the same. Round, white, dimpled. Pay more, fly farther. That is the story we have all been sold. But when I dug into the actual engineering, I found something that stopped me cold. The single biggest factor in how far your drive carries, after swing speed itself, is not the ball's cover, not its price, not the brand stamped on the side. It is how fast that ball spins backward after it leaves the face. Here is the part nobody explained to me for years. Backspin is what makes a golf ball climb. A little bit of it is good, because it creates lift and keeps the ball in the air. But too much of it is a disaster. When your driver puts too much backspin on the ball does not fly forward. It climbs. It shoots up into a steep, weak arc, loses all its forward energy fighting gravity, and drops out of the sky like it got tired. That high, pretty ball flight you think looks powerful? For most amateurs, it is the exact shape of lost distance. I did not believe this at first either. So I found the numbers, and the numbers do not lie. According to launch monitor research from equipment labs that test with robots, the ideal driver backspin for most players sits somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 revolutions per minute. That is the sweet spot. That is where the ball carries the farthest for the energy you put into it. But the average recreational golfer? Testing shows most of them are launching the ball at 3,000, 3,500, even 4,000 RPM off the driver. Every 1,000 extra revolutions can cost you real carry. Robot testing has shown that dropping from around 3,500 RPM down into that ideal range can add somewhere between 15 and 30 yards of carry with the exact same swing. The exact same swing. You do not get stronger, you do not get faster, you just stop spinning the ball into the clouds. And that retired plumber outdriving me on the 12th tee, he was playing a hard, cheap, low-spin ball he bought by the 24 box. His slow tempo plus that low spin ball equaled a flat, boring, penetrating flight that just kept running. That is when I realized something was very wrong with the advice we all get. Because if the ball matters this much, why did nobody ever sit me down and explain it? Why do the sleeves not scream this number at you? Why is every commercial about softness and feel and tour players, and almost never about the one number that actually controls your distance? The deeper I looked, the more I felt like I had walked into a story that started a very long time ago. So I went backward, way backward, to find out when golfers first learned to control spin, and when exactly that knowledge got quietly erased. What I found in the history books genuinely surprised me. The whole idea of controlling how a golf ball spins is not new. It is over 100 years old. Go back to 1898. A man named Coburn Haskell, working with a friend from a rubber company in Ohio, wrapped rubber thread under tension around a small core and covered it. The Haskell ball, they called it. And it did something the old solid gutta-percha balls could not. It flew farther, because the rubber winding changed how energy transferred at impact, and it changed the spin. Golfers who switched gained yards overnight, and word spread like wildfire. Then came 1905. An Englishman named William Taylor filed a patent for something we all take for granted now, the dimple pattern. Before Taylor, people actually thought a smooth ball would fly better, cleaner, faster. They were dead wrong. Taylor proved that tiny dents on the surface control the layer of air around the ball, reduce drag, and manage lift. In other words, over 120 years ago, engineers already understood that the surface and structure of a golf ball control its flight through spin and air. They understood it. They wrote it down. They patented it. So the knowledge was there from the very beginning. This was not a secret. This was foundational. First principles golf. The men building these balls knew that spin was the lever that controlled distance, and they built everything around managing it, which left me with a much bigger and more uncomfortable question. If golfers a century ago understood that the ball's construction controls spin, and that spin controls distance, how did we, with all our technology, end up so confused about it that most of us are bleeding yards without even knowing? Somebody somewhere stopped telling us the whole truth, and I was starting to get an idea of who and why. But before I get to that, I need to show you how they actually build a low spin ball, because once you understand the layers, you will never look at a golf ball the same way again. This is the clue that made everything click for me. It is all about how many pieces are inside that little sphere. Cut a golf ball in half and you find a hidden world. A basic distance ball is what they call a two-piece ball. A big solid core, usually a firm rubber blend, wrapped in a hard cover, traditionally a material called surlyn, which is really a type of tough plastic ionomer. That hard cover and firm core do something specific. They resist grabbing the grooves of your club. Less grab means less spin. And off the driver, less spin means a flatter, longer, more penetrating ball flight. That is the entire secret of the classic distance ball, and it has been true for decades. Then the industry got clever. They started building 3-piece, 4-piece, even 5-piece balls with soft urethane covers. These are the premium tour balls, the ones that cost you $50 a dozen or more. And here's the thing the marketing does not make clear. Those soft urethane covers are designed to grab the grooves and spin more. That is fantastic on your wedges and short irons where you want the ball to bite and stop on the green. But that same grabby cover in the hands of an average golfer with an average swing can add spin off the driver too. And that is exactly the wrong place to add it. So millions of everyday golfers are paying a premium for spin they do not need and cannot control. They see the tour player on television spinning a wedge back 15 feet and they think, I need that ball. But they are not that player. They do not have that swing speed or that angle of attack. For the ordinary golfer who slices, who launches it high, who loses distance to that ballooning flight, a firmer, lower spinning ball is very often the smarter, longer, and cheaper choice. I tested this myself. I went out with a premium 4-piece tour ball and a firm 2-piece distance ball on the same day. Same driver, same launch monitor. The difference was almost embarrassing. The distance ball flew flatter and ran out noticeably farther on nearly every solid drive. The tour ball felt wonderful, soft and buttery off the putter, but off the tee it climbed and came up short again and again. And I remember standing there on the range mat thinking, I have spent hundreds of dollars over the years buying the wrong ball for my own game because a commercial told me expensive equals better. That is the moment the anger started to creep in. Because this was not an accident. Somebody figured out a long time ago that they could sell the most expensive ball to the golfer who needs it the least by making him feel like less of a player for choosing the cheaper one. But I am getting ahead of myself, because before you can pick the right ball, you have to know which ones actually deliver low spin and long distance in 2026. So let me hand you the 5 I kept coming back to, the 5 that survived every test I threw at them. Let me start with the one that surprised me the most. The first ball on my list is the Titleist Velocity. Now stay with me here, because Titleist is famous for the premium tour ball, the one every pro plays. But the Velocity is their forgotten distance weapon, and it is a two-piece, high-launch, low-spin monster off the tee. It has a large, fast core built to reduce long-game spin and fire the ball off the face with a flat, hot trajectory. If you struggle with that ballooning flight I keep talking about, this ball flattens it right out, and it costs a fraction of the tour ball. The second one is the tailor-made Distance Plus. This ball is built around a huge, high-spring core and a firm ionomer cover, and it is engineered for one job: maximum distance with minimum driver spin. It is one of the lowest spinning balls off the tee that you can buy at a reasonable price. And for the golfer whose only complaint is that they want more yards and a flatter flight, it is almost impossible to beat for the money. It will not spin much around the greens, but that is the trade you are choosing on purpose. The third one is the Callaway Warbird. The Warbird has been around for years, and there is a reason it refuses to die. It has an oversized, high-energy core designed to boost ball speed and cut spin on the longer clubs. It is a genuine distance ball at a value price, and slower swing speed players especially tend to love it because that big, soft, fast core helps them launch it high and carry it far without needing a fast swing to compress it. If you are a senior golfer or someone who has lost a little speed over the years, put this one on your test list. The fourth one is the Srixon Distance. Srixon quietly makes some of the best value balls in the game, and the Srixon Distance is a firm, fast, two-piece ball with a resilient, energetic core and a tough cover built to reduce spin and take abuse. It is durable, it flies flat and far, and it holds up round after round without scuffing to pieces. For the practical golfer who does not want to think about it and just wants yards, this one earns its spot. And the fifth one is a little different. The Bridgestone E6, or its modern successor in the E-Series. Bridgestone built the E6 line specifically to reduce side spin as well as backspin. And that word side spin is the one I want you to circle in your mind. Because side spin is what turns your drive into a slice or a hook. A ball engineered to reduce spin does not just help your distance. It can straighten out your ball flight too, because a lower spinning ball curves less offline. So for the golfer fighting a slice that sends the ball into the trees, a low spin ball like this can be genuinely straightening, not just lengthening. So there they are. 5 real balls, tested, that lower your spin and give you back your distance. But if I stopped there, I would be doing exactly what everyone else does, handing you a list and sending you off to spend money. And that is not why I went down this trail. Because here is the question that kept nagging at me. What if you were watching this thinking, that is fine for a guy with a fast swing and money to burn on testing golf balls, but that is not me? What about the golfer who plays twice a month, who buys whatever is on sale, who is not going to rush out and buy 5 different boxes? I want to talk to you directly for a minute, because you are exactly who I made this for. If you are the kind of person who suspects that a lot of useful, simple knowledge got quietly buried so you would keep paying for things you could figure out yourself, then you and I are cut from the same cloth. That exact instinct is what drove every page of my book, First Wins, Sharp Habits, and the Full System, where I put together everything I recovered from this investigation and a dozen others like it. The forgotten tests, the buried engineering knowledge, the practical frameworks that let an ordinary golfer take real control without spending a fortune. It is the resource I wish had existed when I was still blaming my swing. You can find it linked in the description below. Now, back to the trail, because the deeper I looked, the more I felt like I had walked into a story that started a very long time ago. You do not need a launch monitor. You do not need a fitting bay. You do not need to spend $200 testing balls. Everything I am about to tell you, you can do with the golf balls already sitting in your garage right now, this weekend, for free. Because the most powerful thing I learned in this whole investigation is not which ball to buy, it is how to read the ball you already have and how to test it yourself the way the engineers do. Here is the first thing you can do today with zero money. Go find the sleeves and boxes of whatever balls you already own. Look them up by name and find out if they are two-piece or multi-piece and whether they are marketed as distance or tour or soft. If you have been playing a premium 3 or 4-piece tour ball and you struggle with high, short, ballooning drives, I want you to do a simple experiment. Buy one single sleeve of one of the firm 2-piece distance balls I mentioned, just 3 balls, a few dollars. Play the same holes you always play, hit the same drives, and watch where the ball comes down and how far it runs. You will feel the difference in one round. The flatter flight, the extra roll, the way the ball stops fighting you in the wind. That is not a purchase. That is a test, and it will teach you more about your own game than any commercial ever will. Now here is the second free thing, and this one is about how you use the ball, not which ball you buy. Spin off the driver is not only about the ball, it is also about where the ball sits and where you strike it. Tee the ball higher. Let more of the ball sit above the crown of the driver. Try to catch it slightly on the upswing, striking the ball a hair above the center of the face. That single adjustment reduces backspin dramatically for most amateurs. A ball struck low on the face, hit with a downward chopping motion, spins like crazy and balloons. The same ball, teed higher and struck slightly up, launches higher with less spin and carries much farther. So even with the exact same ball, you can drop your spin just by changing your tee height and your strike. That costs you nothing but a little practice. And when you combine the right ball with the right strike, that is when the magic happens. That flat, running, penetrating drive you have been chasing. But there is one more thing, and this is the one nobody told me. This is the clue that took me the longest to find, buried in old equipment testing lore from decades ago, and it is the reason I made this whole video. Because you can buy the perfect low spin ball, tee it perfectly, strike it perfectly, and still lose distance and accuracy on some drives for a reason that has nothing to do with any of that. And when I finally understood why, I could not believe it was not printed on every box. Let me take you back to the middle of the last century. Back in the 1950s and 60s, when equipment engineers were testing golf balls with mechanical robots to remove human error, they noticed something strange. Balls that came off the same production line, that looked identical, that measured identical, would sometimes fly differently. Same robot, same swing, same speed, different results. Some balls flew straight and far. Others curved off line or came up short for no visible reason. And the engineers who studied this closely, including technical experts who later worked with golf's governing bodies, traced it to a hidden flaw. The balls were out of balance. Inside a golf ball, especially the way they were manufactured back then, and honestly, even in cheaper balls today, the core does not always sit perfectly centered. The material does not always distribute evenly, and when the core is even slightly off-center, the ball has a heavy side and a light side. It is out of balance, like a car tire that was never balanced by the shop, the kind that makes your steering wheel shake at highway speed. And an out-of-balance golf ball wobbles almost imperceptibly in flight, spinning around a crooked axis, which robs it of distance and pushes it offline. Now here's the part that made me sit straight up in my chair. The engineers figured out a way to find the heavy side. A test so simple, so cheap, so low-tech, that you can do it tonight at your kitchen sink. And once golfers found out about it, in the old days, the smart ones used it religiously. And then, somewhere along the way, it vanished from common knowledge. It got buried. Because the last thing anyone selling you golf balls wants is for you to have a free way to discover that some of the balls in that $50 box are secretly defective. This is the finale. This is the whole reason I pulled the thread. Let me show you exactly how it works. You need 3 things you already have: a deep bowl or a large glass, water, and Epsom salt, the kind you soak sore muscles in, which costs a few dollars and lasts forever. If you do not have Epsom salt, plain table salt works too. You just need a lot of it. Fill the bowl with warm water, maybe 2 cups, and start stirring in salt. Keep dissolving salt into the water until a golf ball, which normally sinks like a stone, actually floats. You are making the water dense enough to float the ball. It takes more salt than you think, so keep going until that ball bobs up to the surface. Now here is where it gets almost magical. Drop your golf ball into that salty water and give it a gentle spin with your finger. Then watch. If the ball is perfectly balanced, it will just sit there wherever it stops. No preference, calm as can be. But if the ball is out of balance, the heavy side will slowly, stubbornly rotate to the bottom every single time. Spin it again. Same spot floats up on top. Spin it again. Same heavy side sinks to the bottom. That light side that keeps floating up is telling you the truth the manufacturer never printed on the box. This ball has a heavy side and a light side, and it is not going to fly true. I did this at my own sink with a dozen balls, and I was floored. Some of my balls, the expensive ones, stopped wherever I spun them. Balanced. Beautiful. But others, including a few from a name brand box I had trusted for years, kept rolling the same mark to the top over and over, dead giveaway that the core was off center. I marked those balls and set them aside. And here's what you do with this information, the part that actually lowers your scores. For a balanced ball, play it with confidence. It will fly true. For an out-of-balance ball, you have 2 choices. Use it as a shag ball for practice, or, if you want to still play it, mark the light side, the side that floats up, and set the ball on the tee with that light mark pointing straight where you want the ball to start. Lining up the light side means the ball spins around a truer axis and it flies straighter and holds its distance. Think about what this means. For the price of a bag of Epsom salt, you can test every ball in your bag and separate the true flyers from the wobblers. No launch monitor, no fitting, no new driver, just physics and salt water, the exact same trick equipment engineers were using generations ago before the marketing machine decided you were better off not knowing. This is the definition of buried knowledge. It was known, it was used, it was proven with robots. And then it quietly disappeared from the conversation because a golfer who tests his own golf balls is a golfer who asks uncomfortable questions. And now you know it too. So let me put the whole trail back together because every clue finally connects. The men who built the first flying golf balls over 120 years ago understood that spin controls distance. Haskell with his wound rubber core in 1898, Taylor with his dimples in 1905. They knew the ball was the engine. Then the industry learned it could sell you feel and softness and tour prestige, and it slowly stopped talking about the one number that matters most for the everyday golfer, spin. It sold the grabbiest, highest spinning premium balls to the very players who needed the opposite, and it let a free saltwater test that exposes defective balls fade into forgotten history. Meanwhile, you stood on the tee blaming your swing. You took the lessons. You bought the driver. You did everything they told you, and you still watched your ball climb and die in the air while some retired plumber with a homemade grip ran it past you. It was never your swing. It was too much spin from the wrong ball, some of them secretly out of balance, and nobody with something to sell you had any reason to tell you the truth. But it was never really lost. It was just buried. And now you are holding the shovel. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this. I did not go digging through old patents and robot testing lore to sell you a golf ball. I went digging because it drove me crazy that a game I love had been quietly rigged to keep me confused and spending. And what I recovered was not a product, it was control. The ability to look at a ball, understand what is inside it, test it with my own 2 hands at my own sink, and know the truth before I ever tee it up. That feeling of taking that knowledge back, that is what this whole thing was about. If you are the kind of person who suspects that a lot of useful, simple knowledge got quietly buried so you would keep paying for things you could figure out yourself, then you and I are cut from the same cloth. Because that is exactly what happened here, and it happens in 100 other corners of everyday life too. So let me ask you one specific thing, and I really do want you to answer. Go do the saltwater float test on the golf balls you already own tonight if you can, and come back and tell me in the comments how many of your balls rolled the heavy side to the bottom. I am dead serious. I want to know if your expensive tour balls passed or failed. Leave a comment right now with the number, because this audience does not speak up nearly enough, and I read every single one. Tell me which brand surprised you. And if you believe, like I do, that the old practical hands-on knowledge got buried on purpose so we would stay dependent and keep buying, then come stand with the rest of us who are digging it back up. Subscribe and join this, because it is not a channel, it is a group of people recovering the things we were never supposed to forget. Next time I am pulling the thread on something even stranger. There is a reason your golf grips wear out and get slick so fast, and there is an old cleaning trick using one cheap thing under your kitchen sink that restores the tack and can make a worn grip feel new again, saving you a small fortune in regripping. I found where that trick came from, and who profited when you forgot it. I will see you on that trail. You stayed to the end because you want this dialed in. Inside the Old Ways circle, I pick up right where I left off. Ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You belong with the Old Ways folks already in here with me. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen, and you can cancel any time with one click.